Caterpillar PANICS cancels DEI training and LGBT events to avoid a boycott. Caterpillar has revised its employee programs to prioritize core business goals over diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as part of a broader corporate cultural shift. They seem like they were considering this, but they were pushed hard in this direction. Employee training will now focus on promoting high performance, while employee resource groups must align their activities with the company's business strategy. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck claims his campaign prompted Caterpillar's move as he pushes against what he sees as woke DEI policies at companies. Caterpillar withdrew from the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, which scores companies on LGBT support, although the company denies this was related to activist pressure. And of course, DEI activists are warning and threatening that pulling back on diversity efforts could hurt businesses in the long run by limiting access to diverse talent and reducing corporate performance. Those people, of course, know zero about corporate performance. They didn't try to have diversity at these companies because of corporate performance. It was all about pushing an agenda, and the agenda is falling apart. From the Epoch Times, Caterpillar pulls back on DEI, joining John Deere, Ford, and others. Caterpillar has introduced new guidelines that refocus the company's various employee programs on core business goals as part of a broader review of its code of conduct and other underpinnings of corporate culture. With this move, the company joins a growing number of U.S. companies that are rethinking policies related to diversity, equity, and inclusion as such initiatives come under pressure from conservative activists and normal people who won't take it anymore. The updated guidelines laid out in a September 19th internal memo from the company's executive office to employees that was viewed by the Epoch Times include mandating senior management approval for external speakers at company events, concentrating employee training programs on promoting high performance, and establishing new rules for employee resource groups. Caterpillar executives wrote in the memo that the new guidance comes after a comprehensive review of programs and policies, with the changes meant to better align the company's culture with its business strategy. Quote, all training, both formal and informal, must be focused on our business and designed to foster high performance and execution of our enterprise strategy, the memo reads. Initiatives related to external recognition for employees, such as surveys and awards, must be focused on the company's business objectives and be approved in writing by upper-level management. Partly why you have approval for LGBT parade sponsorship and other strange sponsorships that really aren't, of course, related to the company's business activities are because lower-level people are normally trusted to make some intelligent decisions when associating the company with certain things, like sponsoring a children's event, or sponsoring a parade, or sponsoring obvious, safe public interest things, something that's a feel-good event. These companies don't necessarily assume that they're going to get sponsorships that go far into far-left ideology, promoting things from groups that a company would not want to be associated with. But if it's a small amount of money, like it's a $1,000 donation or a $5,000 donation for a company that, does tremendous amounts of revenue and is a big public company, that's not the kind of thing they usually have to watch out for. But now they can't get away with allowing people to do whatever it is that they want. Additionally, the company should have clamped down on this a long time ago. This never should have been allowed. They know who their customers are. They know what their customers are interested in. Yes, they have more customers than just farmers, more so than John Deere. But at the same time, they should know that this is something that is not accepted by a lot of their customers. It's very political. It's very one-sided. It's not going to the core of what their company's supposed to be about and what their customers are interested in. It goes against their customers' values, and it never should have been allowed. Without pushback, a lot of these companies would have never stopped. Now they're stopping. The use of any external speakers must also be approved by managers, who are responsible for ensuring that speakers are properly vetted and that the content aligns with our enterprise strategy and our purpose. So to have people come in and talk about racism and diversity training and things like that, they're not doing that anymore. They're not allowing that to go through. You should be able to trust your employees to know, don't bring this into the company. But, of course, they went haywire and everyone started bringing all these kinds of things into the company and forcing their politics on employees. But now not anymore. Employee resource groups, which Caterpillar says exist to, quote, foster an inclusive culture, through networking, mentoring, and staff development opportunities must now operate explicitly in support of business strategy, with the memo indicating that the company will provide more detailed ERG guidelines for staff in the near future. To legitimately say that you want to have an inclusive culture where everybody does feel like they're part of a tight networked group, even if you're a big company, that's actually quite fine. It's just that people came in and abused privileges and abused their powers and forced people into this political nonsense. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck, who has campaigned against DEI programs at other companies, claimed in a post on social media that the changes at Caterpillar were made after he began communicating with the company last week and threatened to expose their woke policies. Starbuck gets all kinds of inside information from people that work at those companies. They contact him on Twitter and they send him copies of memos, copies of videos, copies of documents that come through. He's got people that are ready to give him things so that he can report on them and embarrass these companies into making changes if it's necessary. At most of the companies he's been dealing with lately, he hasn't had to do that. He hasn't had to expose those kinds of things that much because the companies back down almost immediately when they see he's got this kind of evidence. Starbuck characterized the changes as amounting to doing away with woke trainings, banning donations to divisive events, and ensuring that there's nothing divisive or politically charged in the material presented by external speakers. Quote, those employees will no longer be subjected to the insanity we found during our investigation, Starbuck wrote. Work going forward should be a neutral place for everyone to coexist without any ideology or divisive issues shoved down their throat. This is a massive win for sanity. Starbuck recently put John Deere into his anti-DEI crosshairs, accusing the company of having gone woke and being all in on DEI, with the agricultural machinery maker subsequently dialing down on its DEI programs. He also launched a similar campaign against Tractor Supply, which led to a boycott that prompted the company to back away from its DEI initiatives. Other companies, including Ford, Harley-Davidson, Lowe's, Molson Coors, and the company that makes Jack Daniels, revised their DEI policies in recent months. As companies such as Caterpillar pull back on DEI efforts, advocacy groups and activists have warned of potential consequences. The Human Rights Campaign, in a letter co-signed by other civil rights organizations, claimed that abandoning DEI efforts could prove harmful. Quote, abandoning DEI will have long-term consequences on business success, ultimately shirking fiduciary responsibility to employees, consumers, and shareholders. According to their letter, pointing to studies showing that companies with diverse workforces tend to outperform their peers financially. As if you hired people with certain skin colors or sexual preferences, that would somehow automatically make you a successful business. I can tell you from experience, that doesn't work. It's very important to hire people that are good at what they do or really genuinely want to learn. It has nothing to do with their personal sexual preferences or skin colors. The Human Rights Campaign puts out a corporate equality index, as they call it, that gives companies DEI scores, with points for having an LGBT employee resource group, for instance. The group calls the index the national benchmarking tool on corporate policies, practices, and benefits pertinent to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer employees. They also claim that an extreme group of right-wing activists is trying to pressure companies into abandoning their DEI programs. Starbuck wrote in his message on social media that Caterpillar had also ditched participation in HRC's Corporate Equality Index. A spokesperson for Caterpillar told Bloomberg that the company has been in communication with Starbuck and confirmed the content of the executive office memo sent to staff. However, the spokesperson denied that the company's decision to withdraw from the Corporate Equality Index, which took place last year, was related to Starbucks' activism in any way. Perhaps it was in response to Target's problems. Maybe it was because of Bud Light's problems and the rest of Anheuser-Busch's problems and the problems other companies have had. We don't have an answer to that. None of it matters. It only matters that we get results. And from time, they begin to admit that DEI isn't working. DEI isn't working, inclusive economics might. So what is inclusive economics? It's actually worse than DEI. It's instead of pushing DEI at a corporate level, it's DEI at the federal government level. This is what is being called an opportunity economy, if you hear that in speeches these days. In a quick search, inclusive economics, a how-to guide and workbook for city climate action to create good quality jobs and access for workers historically excluded from career track employment. Well, a lot of us have been excluded from career track employment for one reason or another. When we were young in our life, that can happen. So how does that have anything to do with DEI? Well, from McKinsey & Company, and McKinsey & Company is responsible for consulting on DEI. They're very big in pushing this agenda. They are a consulting company. They're very politically active. Here's what they have to say. An inclusive economy, according to McKinsey's chief client officer, means one that provides opportunities to underserved people and communities. So an inclusive economic system is one that specifically concentrates on whoever, say, the federal government decides happen to be underserved people and an underserved community. So your opportunity economy will provide resources exclusively to, quote, underserved people and communities. It also creates higher wage, more fulfilling jobs and ensures people's mental health needs are met. Their mental health needs. How the federal government would say get involved with people's mental health needs is something we ought to be concerned about if any of us watch any kind of mass media and we see them changing the definition of words and pushing these agendas. But this is a preview of what they have coming next. And from the International Monetary Fund, what's an example of inclusive economic growth? Solutions include more labor rights, antitrust laws, higher minimum wages, subsidies. Watch out for those subsidies. There's a lot of money being spent now by the federal government subsidizing people's lives and lifestyles. That's not a positive. That's a major negative because someone's got to pay for all of that. And it also makes people dependent on those payments. If there's any way to avoid it, it's always better to not accept a handout and just tough it out and figure out how to do it on your own. But inclusive economic growth also includes other industrial policies to counter corporate dominance along with government investments targeting job creation in neglected areas. If you're not a big fan of DEI, you will definitely not like inclusive economics. Inclusive economics probably will never happen in this country, the same way that DEI got out of control and now it's being pushed back on. But watch out for it. The term is going to come up. Right now, it's being called an opportunity economy. Eventually, they will start to switch to inclusive economics, but only when they have people that can speak well on the topic and make it sound like it's reasonable and fair, when of course it's not reasonable and fair because it's for whoever the government targets as being an underserved person or an underserved community. It's the equity agenda, but at the federal government level. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.